Hi, started here in about 4 minutes. Wanted to point out that we do have the technical assistance document on developing your detailed evaluation plans posted on the TAACCCT Community of Practice. We have the link there up on the screen, and you may want to go to that and download the actual document for the presentation today. We are going to go through it in detail, and you'll see screenshots of it as well if you don't have that capability and want to do that afterwards. But we wanted to point that out to you, and we'll get back to you in a few minutes.
Lily Dahl with the Department of Labor. We're going to get in a minute. Right now, you're looking at a screen that gives the full HTML address to a document that we're going to be referring to throughout the webinar. So you can write out that link in your browser. We're also sending it to make it easier for you to copy into the chat function that will be appearing soon in your chat function on your box. And so we are going to hopefully be able to access that. We're going to move the slides forward, but you'll still be able to access the link through the chat function box. And again, this is a link on the TACT Community of Practice for the Detailed Evaluation Plan Technical Assistance document, specifically for Round 4. And in the TACT Community of Practice folder, under Evaluation, under Detailed Evaluation Plans. Okay, I do want to start with first just logistics. While we are talking logistics and while you are trying to download that document, so you'll notice that all of you are muted, and that's we are recording this section, and we do want to have the possible to record it. We are going to be taking questions throughout the session, and you can enter your questions in the chat function, okay, into the chat function, and you'll be able to, we'll be taking questions throughout the session, and then have about 30 minutes at the end. We will try to address as many questions as possible. And, on the line, and they might be helping us with some questions, or if you have any specific questions, we can certainly follow up through the TACT email box on that as well. So,
Erica,
yeah.
we just, a few people are having some trouble with the audio, so we're just going to, double check that that's working.
It should be working.
If you can hear me, do you want to go ahead and put in having trouble hearing? There's a couple people, so thinking about webinars is that you should log into the computer first and then log using your phone. And so if you haven't done that, you're going to want to mute your line. You can do that either by pressing mute on your phone.
They can hear you.
Okay, I think we've got most of the logistics taken care of, but please feel free to use that chat feature. We'll be following along with it and see if you have any more issues. Okay, so my name is Erica Dahl, and I work at the Department of Labor's Chief Evaluation Office. I'm the Department of Labor's lead for evaluations related to TACT. And the purpose of this webinar is to discuss detailed evaluation plans as required in the Round 4 ABA. We are so excited to have you here today. Folks that are participating in this webinar are most likely the TACT 4 grants. We're also happy to welcome all of the TACT FCOs who support you in your grant work. We're also hoping to have some of you that have been able to procure third-party evaluators, to have them on the line. We realize that a lot of you are probably in different stages in terms of procuring your third-party evaluator. Some of you might already have a third-party evaluator on board, and some of you have already had potentially several meetings with them to discuss the detailed evaluation plans, and you're rocking and rolling, you're developing them. And then others of you are probably still working on the procurement for a third-party evaluator and working through that. We certainly know at the federal government about how procurement can take longer than you anticipate sometimes, and so I'm with you right there. We are going to be talking about some deadlines today and the expectations that Department of Labor does have for your detailed evaluation plans. And, we have set some reasonable deadlines to try to accommodate where most of you will be in terms of procuring third-party evaluators. But I just really want to emphasize that, we understand evaluation, and we know that either procurement takes time or developing your detailed plan takes time, and you want to get these things right. So we do need you to turn in as soon as possible so that we can approve your plan so you can move forward. But, you know, we're willing to work with you, and as we're talking about the deadlines, we'll also talk about things that you need to do to keep communicating with us along the way about if you're not able to meet those deadlines and work with us on alternative dates. So, you know, we are really glad to have you on board. Evidence and the work that your third-party evaluators are going to be doing to build more evidence around TACT is a really important part of for evaluation. We do want to make sure that your third-party evaluators are doing the most rigorous evaluations possible so we can continue to build on a large body of evidence around what you're doing with your grants, all the innovations and all the exciting strategies that you're doing across TACT, and we really just want to document that and try to figure out how we can build more evidence for future work around the community colleges in this realm. Today's agenda, we're going to give you an overview of evaluation. For TACT, we are going to talk to you about deadlines and the review process of the evaluation plans. We're going to give a lot of different helpful tips. So, you know, what should be going into these detailed evaluation plans, and what approaches that you as grants and certainly you as third-party evaluators on the line are going to be wanting to think about and include. We're also going to share with you the resources that we do have available in addition to the technical assistance document to help you develop these detailed evaluation plans. And then we're hoping to have 30 minutes. We've reserved 30 minutes at the end for questions and answers. And again, you'll be able to post questions along throughout the entire webinar in the chat box function. It's at the right hand of your screen, and then we'll address those in the Q&A period. So speakers are myself. Again, I'm Erica Lillydahl, and this is the spelling of my very unique last name, and I work with the Chief Evaluation Office at Labor. She's with us today, and she'll be talking about all the recommendations and tips for the evaluation plans. Lauren Eister with the Urban Institute. She's a co-principal investigator on the Round 4 TACT evaluation. Now to talk about an overview of these TACT third-party evaluations. So a reminder for any third-party evaluators just joining us, or as a refresher for everyone else, you know, we did have a very detailed webinar in January about the national evaluation and all the different elements and work that we're going to be doing on a national level. So today, and then that webinar was recorded and we posted on our website that we're putting together, as well as you can get all the documents and materials on the TACT Community of Practice. Today, we're focusing on your third-party evaluations, and so this slide is going to cover all of the requirements, particularly on what we're from your third-party evaluation. So required as a part of the SGA that you responded to, and as you got a grant award, you are required to procure a party evaluation. A third evaluator, sorry, and that third-party evaluator needs to conduct two things. One, conduct an implementation analysis of your grants. The second thing you need to do is select either an outward impact analysis that's the most rigorous, design feasible based on your intervention and conversations with you about that, and provide rationale to us about how that's the most rigorous design feasible. He needs to develop this detailed evaluation plan and submit it to TACT at dell.gov, including copying your FPO. Then your detailed evaluation plans will be reviewed, and we'll get some feedback. I'm sorry, we're reviewing your summary evaluation plans, and we'll be getting feedback on that, and we'll only want to include any feedback or responsiveness to that in your detailed evaluation plan. This is, I really can't emphasize this enough, but grantees really must rely on the capacity and expertise of third-party evaluators to develop a detailed evaluation plan. So this this is the third year, the third round of CAC in which we have required. Round 1, we didn't require them, but a lot of grant them. Round 2, 3, and now 4 are all required to have third-party evaluations. It is when the third-party evaluators were not relied on as you're developing an evaluation plan, and it just doesn't make sense to submit it at that point. You really do need to rely on their evaluation. You know, we will review and basically come back and let you know we do need to have someone with expertise in this area development. And so, you know, it does behoove you to wait until you have that third-party evaluator procured, on board, talk with you about the different aspects of your grant, and really coming up with a detailed evaluation plan for our review. So a little bit about this, but why we are requiring a detailed evaluation plan is, you know, this is a basic part of any evaluation is there's this design phase where you're coming up with, you know, the intervention, coming up with a conceptual framework, identifying the research questions, trying to figure out what those rigorous evaluation feasible is. And so these are really, this is a basic and really important step in design evaluation before you implement the evaluation. And the Department of Labor, we have decided that we really want to make sure if you're spending grant funds up to 10% of your budget on evaluation, we want to make sure it's done well, it's a high quality evaluation, and that it's as rigorous as possible. And so that is why we are requiring you to submit a detailed evaluation plan for our review, and we'll be approving it, and then you, once you have approval, to spend funds on implementing the evaluation. So these evaluations, and so they'll include details on both implementation and outcome impact study. And so, you know, they'll also, you'll want to reframe the research questions, the methods, the data, the analysis solutions. These are all things that we're going to go through in much more detail in a minute, and we'll give you lots of recommendations and tips on. So just to back up and remind us all, you did submit your summary evaluation plans with, and so we reviewed that we're ready to send out some feedback. There's a little bit of a timing nuance in that we're coordinating very closely with ETA. They are in the midst of out and getting together your compliance letters, and so you will be getting the compliance letters from ETA, and then very soon after that you will be getting feedback on your detailed evaluation plans, because we are working very closely with ETA on coordinating with you, sure you get information in both a timely manner and also what makes most sense in terms of managing your grant. So, once that feedback on the summary evaluation plan is going to also include a link to the document that we're talking about today, which is the assistance document on detailed evaluation plans. You'll also be able to reference this, these slides and this webinar. If you have any other questions, you'll certainly be able to reach out to us. But the deadline for detailed evaluation plans is May 15th. And if you are not able to, you know, meet that deadline, like some of you might be pushing up against that because of your procurement, and you might already know today that that's not reasonable. We really do need you to send us an email to tact@dol.gov, PO, and let us know if you're not going to be able to meet that deadline, because there's over 71 grants here, and so we need to, reviewing your detailed evaluation plans, you know, that you're taking a lot of time and resources to develop those, and so we also need to devote that time and expertise to reviewing them. So we do need to plan around that to be able to get you your feedback as timely as possible. So if you cannot meet that May 15th deadline, we are willing to work with you, but you do need to submit that in writing and let us know when you're expecting to have the detailed evaluation plan in. We are, and that you rely on the capacity and expertise of your third-party advisors to develop those plans. So it would behoove you to ask for an extension and get a little more time on that if you need to wait based on your procurement timeline. When you're evaluation plans, so this is a really good point at the top of this slide. So just to be clear, each grantee or consortium does only need to submit one evaluation plan, and emailing it to tac@dol.gov with a copy to your FPO. It really would be helpful if you subject the email as round 4 TAC evaluation plan, because it does flag to everyone in DOL that works on TAC that it will be coming to the Chief Evaluation Office for review. In the body of the email, if you could include the name of your third-party evaluator and any contact information that they have. We are going to have, as we talked about in the January webinar, we have a ton of resources and a ton of peer learning opportunities that are available for third-party evaluators, so we absolutely want to make sure that they are of all of those different activities. So we hear about all of the official DL and information and webinars specifically for us, but we want to make sure they're in the loop and networked with all the other third-party evaluators. So plans, again, there is a review process, and so we are planning for all of the third-party evaluation plans that we're able to get by May 15th. We will be providing you with formal feedback. You will get an email by the end of August, maybe sooner, depending on how things go, but we did want to promise that by the end of August you will have feedback on that. Any late plans will be reviewed as soon as possible, but we are going to be prioritizing any that come in May 15th on time first. So the other thing is that, in some cases we will be recommending some changes, or, if there are some concerns, which, this happens, but it has happened, that we've had some real concerns about the quality of the evaluation plans, and so we have required submission of a revised detailed evaluation plan. But I'm confident with all the experience with TAC and evaluations out there now, and a lot of you are very experienced in this on the reviewing your summary evaluation plans, that we will probably be seeing some really, really promising, really high quality detailed evaluation plans this round. I am going to be turning over to Lauren now, and we're going to be going through, so I've kind of given you the nuts and bolts in terms of what's required. And Lauren is going to give you some helpful hints and tips and recommendations, and walking you through the technical assistance document to help you think about what kinds of things should go into detailed evaluation plans, and what are the kinds of things that you as a grant should be asking your third-party evaluator for to make sure is included in the plan.
Thank you, Erica. So right now, I go through the technical assistance document. Hopefully you saw the link in the chat box as well as in the PowerPoints at the beginning, or able to actually download it beforehand. But not to worry, we are going to show screenshots of everything as we go through. If there was a chance for you to be able to do that, and you can download it later. Purpose of today is really to help you in developing your detailed evaluation plan. And this technical assistance document provides a list of recommended components of an evaluation plan and a possible structure for you to use. Throughout the document, we link it to the requirements of the TAC third-party evaluations SGA for you to refer to, and again, that's all in the document. And we suggest evaluation plans, just some structure around it in terms of length. We recommend 30 pages, double-spaced, and a 12-point font. It helps, us as we're looking through it, but hopefully for everybody, to use in terms of reviewing it. the column set up, and we show on the screen here that we have component, the description of that component, a reference in the SGA if that is applicable. If not, we provide some, it may be blank, but they provide some recommendations for, how to implement the and develop that particular component of your plan well. Let's see. Just so we have a complete sense of what you all are doing, we really encourage you to think through each of these components. And if you do have questions, you can email us at the tacteval@urban.org website. If you have just want on something biased, that is fine too. So just wanted to put that out there as well. Of the components of the detailed evaluation plan. Again, this is a suggested structure. It walks through all the key elements of an evaluation plan that you might want to include, and especially aligns with the requirements of the SGA for an implementation and outcomes and impact analysis. The first three sections for the detailed evaluation plan. It'll help you frame the introduction and context will really help you frame and provide an overview of the evaluation design and set the stage for what you all are trying to do with your third-party evaluation. It's easiest if you have a table of contents and page numbers. This really does help for the reviewers to read through and provide feedback on your plan so we can be a little more specific. The introduction should provide a summary of what the evaluation will try to achieve and its goals, and give an overview of the overall evaluation. So I think, it's just really a high-level summary of the evaluation design will really set the stage for the overall plan as you go into more detail. It's also important to include a description of the intervention to be evaluated. This should discuss the evidence base for the selected model. You might want to look at the SGA, which has references throughout and in the appendix on evidence-based strategies. Also include all of the components of the intervention or multiple interventions if that's what you all, the grant is implementing, and what will be evaluated specifically. A discussion on the plans for recruiting and enrolling participants, and timing of the intervention during the grant will affect how it is to be evaluated. So what I mean by this is, we know these are 4-year grants, and the last year of the grant is for evaluation purposes. So how much follow-up does that allow for, especially if you're looking at education and employment outcomes? So we're trying to think through timing and that recruitment and enrollment and when those last cohorts of students might be going is really helpful to think through and present up front. That you discuss the implementation analysis design and the section 4. It's intended to document and assess all of the TACT grant activities that are being implemented. A description of this required component can be found in the SGA on page 79. And for this component, you should really describe in detail how the third-party evaluator will analyze the steps taken by the institution to create and run the training program, how the third-party evaluator will assess the operational strengths and weaknesses of the product after implementation, and the third-party evaluator will suggest how implementation might be strengthened within appropriate timing so as not to interfere with the impact and outcomes analysis. We know there are bumps along the road in implementation, and grantees and folks implementing the activities will need to adjust along the way. And so it's really important for the third-party evaluator to, process, be recommending how that can be done so as not to affect the the impact and outcome studies. Also recommend that you develop a conceptual framework of some kind, whether it's a logic model or a theory of change, a representation of the grant activities with the goals and the outcomes, and really taking you through that. So this can really help strengthen the evaluation design. It really also aligns with being able to assess fidelity to the model. This is really important. Was the model implemented and the activities implemented as designed? What changed along the way? And really being able to track that is really important for evaluation. Next, that word GA, and they're listed here within the document as well, but there might be others that you want to include that are tailored to the grant activities underway for your grant. As these are grants that focus on capacity building, that build capacity of the funded institutions to provide workforce education and training, these workforce strategies that you all are implementing, you may consider questions and part of your evaluation that relate to this kind of work, this capacity building that your grant is doing, and how it will be sustained over the long run. To understand data collection strategies that will be used for the implementation analysis, information on the source of data and how it will be collected, look at all the range of possible methods that you might use, whether it be interviews with staff and stakeholders to be a part of your data collection plan. It's really thinking about implementation to get a perspective, maybe partners that were involved in this effort, and really how to understand from multiple perspectives how this was implemented and what the opinions and perspectives are of all of these stakeholders. Participate may be in other groups as well, through focus groups that you might want to, or surveys. You also probably want to look at documents that are produced. Maybe these are planning documents. They could be recruiting students to programs. It could be curriculum. I think there's a lot of documents that are being produced through these grants, and so that might be a key part of your data collection. Let's think about whether it's the implementation analysis or the impact and outcome analysis, is how you protect the individuals you collect data from. You want to think about informed consent and securing any data that you collect, especially if it can, people's names or anything sensitive. You want to be careful about that, and you might need to go through an institutional review board, depending on your firms, the evaluators, or the institution's processes. So that's a really important consideration, and I make that comment for the data you'll be collecting, whether it's the implementation or the impact study. So for the outcomes and impact analysis, this is the second major requirement of the TACT third-party evaluation, and this information can be found on page 78 and 79 of the SGA. This is the component where evaluators should be measuring educational and employment outcomes of the participants in TACT-funded activities. Outcomes may be of interest and relevant and should be included, but these are the main ones of interest to the department in building the evidence of the workforce strategies being implemented. This is what you as grantees and evaluators are being asked to conduct the most rigorous impact or outcome study possible. When we say impact, we mean that the outcomes of the participants are compared to a group of similar individuals that did not receive the TACT-funded intervention. It allows you to be able to say what the effect of the intervention was on the participants. When you say we mean that there is no comparison group, but the participant outcomes are reported. This is a rigorous method of evaluating the TACT programs and should only be used if no experimental or quasi-experimental methods are feasible. For this component, the detailed evaluation plan should include a description of this methodology. The summary evaluation plans we really recognize allowed for only a limited space to describe your evaluation plan here, but we definitely want you to put in the rationale, the justification for the selected approach, and why it is the most rigorous approach possible for your evaluation. You may new information. If the evaluator is on board, I'm sure the grantee and the evaluators have been talking and understanding the strategies that are being implemented a lot better, and so this really gives you an opportunity to reflect on any changes or new information. And just again to emphasize, only impact analyses with carefully designed comparison groups can be used to assess the effectiveness of TAACCCT-funded programs. And you can look at Appendix O of the SGA, which provides a framework for these methodologies. And no matter what approach it is you decide to take, really put rationale for the approach. It's something that we're looking for, and we really want to be able to give good feedback to you when you're developing your plans and being able to move forward. There are limitations like small sample sizes or difficulty in identifying appropriate comparison groups that you really want to explain. And in a bit, we'll talk about putting in a section or at least some information on the limitations of the evaluation design, and you will be able to explain what that entails. As developing this section of your detailed evaluation plans, we really do want to make sure you include the key research questions that will guide the outcomes and impact analysis. The SGA doesn't specify questions to be answered, but it does indicate that the purpose of the outcome impact analysis is to rigorously evaluate participant outcomes and impacts. So you really should think about how that can, the research questions that really should guide this analysis. And should also identify those outcomes and make sure you collect them on the outcomes that are including SGA, but there are other relevant outcomes that you really want to be looking at based on the intervention and the activities that you are undertaking. If outcomes analysis will be conducted, it is important that grantees and the evaluator can provide justification for this approach, because it provides only really weak evidence of the program, well it works. So it's really helpful to, if you can't use a comparison group, to provide some context or way of benchmarking the outcomes. For example, you could compare the outcomes to those of similar programs serving the target population, or publicly available data on similar students and their outcomes, context for your findings. For experimental design, congratulations. This method will yield the most rigorous evidence of the effectiveness of the program and activities that you all are implementing. You recognize that this is a challenging method to implement, so it is helpful. You have selected this method to get as many details as possible on your plan analysis. We're excited to provide you feedback on this approach. Really be able to help you out as much possible. The SGA does provide detailed guidance about what must be included regarding experimental design, and this is a lot of this is in Appendix O, as I mentioned before. But really want to think about, especially if you do have a large number of TAA eligible workers or veterans, who cannot be randomly assigned. The detailed evaluation plan should also provide information on how grantees will recruit enough applicants for the program to be randomly assigned, and how the third-party evaluator will implement and monitor random assignment. A lot of tips on there, and we'll continue to talk about these things, especially looking at sample size and power analysis. We've had some webinars on that kind of information to really help third-party evaluators in thinking of their evaluations and what is feasible. So we'll be making sure we have those kinds of resources available to you on our upcoming website.
And just to add, so you haven't missed anything. We're talking about previous conversations on comparison cohorts and difficulties in selecting them. We've are not new challenges. These are things that all the previous rounds have dealt with, and so we have had discussions with them, and all of the notes for them are available, and we will be getting you access to all of those resources.
We're going to talk about the non-experimental design option or quasi-experimental design. Just that this method does not provide as rigorous evidence as experimental design, but it does allow, if properly implemented, for causal inferences to be drawn, which is very important in measuring impacts of an intervention. For this particular component of the detailed evaluation plan, you do really want to talk about how this design will allow for those causal inferences. This is an important part, and something we want to understand. Also should include information on the treatment and comparison groups, why the comparison group was selected, how it's maybe similar to the treatment group, why it is the best comparison group available. The range of options out there, again, as Erica mentioned, the resources and events that we've held for previous rounds, we talked about design selecting a comparison group, and so that's something you may want to look at and really understanding why the one you've selected is the best available. You may have multiple comparison groups, and you might have a rationale for that as well. Information on sample sizes. This is something that we've in previous rounds seen consistently. I know it's hard to know everything ahead of time, but if you can put in some of your best estimates, it's really helpful. If you can do a power analysis to understand what sample sizes you need to be able to detect effects, that's, again, really important, and it's something that you'll get feedback on if it's not in there. Also, you explain what matching variables you might use, what variables you might use to draw the comparison group. You really should consider, variables like demographics, pre-program earnings, and employment. Variables maybe like pre-test scores would be useful, especially maybe what's used for selection into the program. Collect for this part of the analysis is really crucial, and we know this is such an important part and something that as much upfront as possible is incredibly helpful. One thing that we talked to previous from previous rounds about is especially getting data on employment and earnings, and really how best to do that. We strongly encourage you to work as quickly as possible to reach out to state labor departments who have administrative data, the unemployment insurance wage record data, that is one of the sources for the kind of information most consistent. And so, just really think about the data you're going to need, be working, within, your institution, your grant institution, and being able to obtain that individual level student data that you're going to need. If you have a comparison group, how that will, how you'll collect that to have similar data on the treatment and comparison group. Just to emphasize that thinking about the timing of the evaluation and how much follow-up you're going to be able to have, considering the grant time period, what's really feasible of how much you're going to be able to look at education and employment outcomes for later cohorts, and really think that through and how that might work best for you. Some other plan components that you might want to consider including. I mentioned earlier limitations. Again, it's understood that evaluators may encounter limitations in terms of data collection, in terms of sample size, in the method selected. It's really just important to spell that out. We just really encourage you to help think that through early on, and if there are ways to mitigate those potential challenges. just really putting it out there, and we might have some feedback that would be able to help you as well, or some resources. So please include information on what you see as potential limitations. And it's great if it turns out that it doesn't end up being an issue, but that there are always bumps along the way, and the best thing you can do is be proactive about it. We also want to include information on the reporting that you will do. So GA has specific reporting requirements, interim and a final report. This will be used to inform national evaluation, but it'll also inform, of course, your grantees on the findings from their particular activities. Our interim report can be especially useful, if there are particular challenges that the grantee maybe wasn't aware of, that they can improve what they're doing. Really think through the reporting that you all will be doing. Third-party evaluators might also be involved in the quarterly reporting or annual reporting, and that certainly might be part of what the role of the third-party evaluator is. But that's always the case. Suggest including a reference list, and it's just always really helpful for us to understand the theories, and the literature behind the methods and processes that you're selecting for your event. So again, this is a structure for how you might want to do your third-party detailed evaluation plan. We really encourage you to include all these components. It might come out a little differently than we have laid out here, but we're going to give you feedback on all these particular items, and so if we might see something, we might give you feedback that relates to some of the things that were in this document. Just want to mention that we will have a TACT evaluation website coming in April of 2015. The resources that will be available on the website will include resources on methods and evaluation examples that might be really useful to you in thinking about your design. Information on webinars and conferences, both ones that are upcoming as well as ones that we've done in the past that you can look at the recordings. And then ways that you can connect with your peers. So a lot of the events that we've had so far with previous rounds, we always include third-party evaluators to share examples of what how they've overcome particular challenges, and really, a great job on a particular issue, whether it's with their implementation analysis or outcomes and impact analysis. And really, it's just great to hear from folks out doing the hard work. So again, we're going to continue with that, and we really want to, include folks as they're working through their evaluations and really being able to share that.
Great. So before we dive into the questions, I just want to, if we can go to the very last slide with the table of contents. So just to recap, so this is, kind of what we walked you through today. This is a copy of the technical assistance document, and so we focused on the implementation analysis, which is required as a part of the solicitation for grants for round 4, as well as the outcome impact analysis. And then Laura walked you through in the detailed evaluation plan technical assistance document, it outlines where the references are in the SGA for required elements. It also tells you, if this is not a required but a recommendation and tip of something that you as a grant will want to look for in a solid, high-quality evaluation plan as defined by your third-party evaluator. So, this is really just to help you to look at, certainly the organization of it, or, the naming and all of those things, they don't need to be there, but this is to show you these are the critical elements that we will be looking for in high-quality evaluation plan, and have flagged for you, what's required for the by the SGA. So that said, I have a couple questions that we can get to from the beginning that come in, and then a law more questions have kind of come in, so we might put you on mute as we kind of get together. A lot of people have asked, let's go back to the tacteval.org website on so be looking for this, and we'll email you to let you know when this is available. But, you know, we do have lots of resources that were previous rounds were available in a SharePoint site, and we also have new resources available, and we're putting those all together in one place on the tacteval.org site. However, if you need a copy of this document that we walked through today, if you need a copy of PowerPoint that we're talking about today, if you need a copy of the webinar PowerPoint that we did talking about national evaluation and all the work that and expectations for evaluation of you as a grant, all available at the TACT Community Practice site. And so put that address back up in the chat function. But, you know, and if you find anything that we've talked about today or would like a copy of something and are having trouble finding it, please just feel free to email us. We will help you get there. So the other question, one of the questions that came in, which is a really great question, so it sounds like this grantee is really on top of things, and they already have issued an RFP and awarded a contract for a third-party evaluator, and they were just concerned because, you know, this technical assistance document for this round just came out, and so they were saying, you know, it might look a little different today. That's absolutely fine. You know, there are all of the requirements for the detailed evaluation plan were in the statement solicitation of grant applications for round 4. We've just tried to pull those out and organize them in a way that reminds you what the requirements are, but then also gives you some recommendations and tips. So we would not expect that all the evaluation plans follow this exact outline or structure, but we would expect to see all of the, we would expect to see, for example, an implementation analysis and your approach to that, and the research questions and the data you're going to use and the data sources. We expect to see an impact and outcomes or analysis, and we would expect to see your rationale and your sample size and your power analysis discussion, so we can see, you know, is this the most feasible possible? Is this the most rigorous possible? Things like that. Okay, other questions? This is a really interesting question. It's saying, you know, that we're in 4 of TACT, and so we would expect to see that we would have lots of other examples around in evaluation reports from previous rounds or final evaluation reports. So, you know, this, unfortunately, the evaluation does take time, and we didn't require round 1 to do evaluations, and so actually we sort of getting to the place where the round 2 grants are starting to send in interim evaluation reports. Actually, those are just starting to trickle in, and we are, you know, reminding all of them to send them in, but, you know, we are just as excited and anxious to get our hands on those as you all are, and so we will continue to think until, you know, we are going to do, as we discussed in January, a systematic review of all the evaluation plans, but we're certainly developing tacteval.org. We will consider how we can make as many resources available to you as possible. Okay, so this is a really interesting question. Okay, so the question is, can participants of a prior TACT project comprise the comparison group of their separate TACT4 projects? So that's an interesting question, and I'm not going to say no, I'm not going to say yes, but what I am going to do is say, okay, what are the research questions you're trying to answer? And if you're trying to show that your round 4 TACT group is something innovative and exciting and new, anything that college has done before, then maybe a prior TACT grant would be an appropriate comparison group. However, to build upon what you've been doing in previous TAC rounds and just innovate a little differently, then I'm not sure that that comparison group would be the most appropriate baseline, comparison group. So it really depends on the specifics of your intervention. It depends on the research questions you're trying to answer. So great question, but I feel like a great discussion to have with your evaluator as you're trying to develop research questions and think through appropriate designs. So this is which I think will be answered by, just to recap, so some grantees are required to submit one evaluation plan. And, so we're only expecting, some in previous rounds, I know some 19 different colleges part of one grant, and we are working with those grants on an evaluation plan, and that is certainly all that we are expecting. One thing again about, I think this question came in before we discussed it, but I'll just, the summary evaluation plans that you submitted with your applications, those have been reviewed, and we are preparing the feedback on that, and we'll soon be ready to send that out. You'll first be getting a letter from the Department of Labor, Employment, and Training Administration regarding your grant documents, and then a letter will follow that regarding your feedback on summary evaluation plans. And just to clarify, the note of clarification, the grant will always be the one actually submitting the evaluation deliverables to tact@dol.gov and copying your FPO. The third-party evaluator certainly can reach out to us if there's and things like that, but we always would expect that the grant themselves would be the ones submitting official deliverables, like the detailed evaluation plan, like the evaluation interim report, like the final evaluation report. We actually see you, the grants, as the customer of these evaluation products, and you are the one procuring this evaluator, and they're providing this for you, and you are using grant funds to do that. And so we are holding you accountable for those deliverables, but you are holding your evaluators accountable for those deliverables. Okay, so we have a ton more questions that have come in, so I'm just going to put you on hold for a minute while we go through them and get a little bit organized of how we're going to answer them. Great questions coming in. Some of them are similar to what I just answered, so we're kind of grouping them as they come in. Let me know if we don't address your question, but one thing we are going to do is we're adding a new slide right now with the DL email address, so you know how to contact Department of Labor. We're also going to put up the tact.eval.org email address, so you know how to contact like any third-party evaluators or even grants. If you're not sure who to go to on evaluation, you can email us there, and we coordinate very, very closely. And so if it's related, certainly loop in and let Department of Labor handle it from there. We received we got in a really important question, and it's actually not about third-party evaluations, but it's a really important question about the national evaluation that the Department of Labor is doing for round 4. So just as a reminder, as part of the solicitation for grant applications, it did describe how we are going to be doing a rigorous random assignment net impact evaluation for round 4. And what we've done is we are setting up with all of the TACT grantees to get some additional information about your plans. If we need further clarification than what was already in your application. So we needed to find out some information about your interventions or who you're going to be serving, and finding information about your position and also the size and number of people you're going to be serving in order for us to make a decision about which one we're going to select to participate in the impact study. And this is a requirement for the grant, and we contracted in order to make sure that the national evaluation as well as the rigorous impact evaluation for round 4 is independent. The Department of Labor has gone through a competitive process and has awarded a contract to Apt Associates, and they also, Apt Associates is also working with Urban Institute to work on the round 4 national evaluation. So Apt Associates and your SPOs are all aware of this. We all got a list of different grants they need follow-up information on, and they've been contacting you. They actually completed the calls on Monday and Tuesday with all of you to get additional information. This is a great opportunity for me to also say, you know, some of our next steps are there are that we are excited about what you're doing and we want to learn more, and so we potentially we'll be ready to you to let you know if we're going to be scheduling a visit. And so when we come out and do that visit, we'll have some information with you about more about what we're doing and how we could work together. You know, we are going to be counts of third-party evaluations that are going to be on site. So that might be some of the more things that we want to talk to you about, you know, how that's going, where you are in your time frame, and certainly there are really important things to consider as your third-party evaluators are selecting your group or your comparison group, and as we're selecting for the national evaluation what the comparison groups will be. There are some really important considerations, and that's why we're going to have detailed discussions with you, and that's why we need to come on site and talk to you more about what's going on there. So let's see. I think we have some other questions coming in.
And I just want to mention we put the emails, the relevant email, in the chat box function. We found that a little bit easier, so you can find that there. So one of our attendees asked about what we mean about integrating the outcomes and impact analysis with the implementation analysis findings. You know, having a mixed method evaluation is great because the outcomes and impact analysis provide you know, a sense of numbers and looking at the participants that are their characteristics, what their employment and educational outcomes are, and then maybe their impacts. So you know, a comparison group or a control group, being able to look at those numbers. The implementation analysis can provide an overview of the program, really be able to explain what you're seeing in terms of the participants recruited, how recruitment went, what their outcomes were, how implementation might explain what you're finding in the outcomes and impact analysis. So they really go hand in hand in terms of your overall evaluation.
While we're filtering through the next questions coming in, I did want to mention that we do have Carol Martin with us from the Employment and Training Administration. She's joining she's at the Department of Labor, and so just wanted to make sure, Cheryl, you knew that we had opened the line up for you in case you wanted to jump in or add anything that we might have missed.
Well, Cheryl Martin, can you hear me?
Yes.
And welcome everybody to the call, and appreciate you taking your time to come on. It's very exciting to see this kind of thing happening. I don't, the scope of the evaluation that we're doing with this program is just much larger than with many other programs in the past, and it will be very exciting to see all the results. Right, that's what evaluations
yeah.
are. But meanwhile, we're excited to be involved with you doing it. I don't have anything to add at this time, but I am here if there are questions that come up for me. Thank you.
Great. So, we got a comment, a question asking about requiring informed consent from participants of a comparison group. You know, there's something that's come up with colleges and grantees that are looking at prior reports as comparison groups, and you really have to work with your institutions on that. We're well aware of the FERPA rules and regulations that govern student data and student records, and so that's something to really look into your institution's policies around privacy and what you are able to access as a part of a comparison group. You know, there are exceptions to FERPA, but really that is something you'll have to work out with your grantee, and you know how that also works for you're going to access UI wage records, working with your state on that kind of information. So really, you know, it'll be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. You know, I just thought of something. If we have this, so we're, you know, looked through our summary evaluation plans and have noticed that, you know, some familiar names in terms of grants. So if you were part of a previous round of grants, you know, if you want to say in the chat function that you have experience with planning a evaluation and offer yourself as a resource for for your peers here in round 4, you know, we would love that. So just feel free to put your name and your you know, address or something, and other folks can reach out to you. I'm sure they'd be willing to share, you know, as they're moving along, you know, what their current evaluation plan or reports are. You know, that would be.
Be starting to make those connections in the coming months.
Oh yes, definitely.
With the new website and the activities that we'll be putting on.
Okay, some really great questions about kind of the different approval processes and where we are in terms of evaluation design and IRB and other approvals for the National Round 4 evaluation. So contract for round 4 for the round 4 evaluation actually was awarded the day that your grants were awarded. And so they are kind of in the same boat as you are in terms of timeline. So what we've focused heavily on is round 4 evaluation, and we've been kind of up with the design for that. And then we also had to switch gears when we got all of your proposals, and we wanted to really prioritize that and review those as soon as possible so we could get you feedback as soon as possible. So next steps are, you know, we're working on refining our own research questions based on, you know, reviewing your proposals and trying to come up with the feasibilityness of, you know, what research questions could be answered best. And so, you know, we're kind of in that stage right now, and so we're in a similar boat as you in terms of timeline of the National Round 4 evaluation.
Yourself up as, you know, potential resources. Thank you so much.
So let's do a time check. I think it's at 4:06. So we promised you all that we would be ending at 4:15. We are going to stay here and just see if any other questions trickle in. We'd be happy to answer any other questions. And again, you know, the ACT Community of Practice has this detailed evaluation plan technical assistance document. ahead and put back up the email addresses as well, as if anyone has any follow-up questions.
The email addresses are in your chat box function.
Okay, yep.
Here.
I thought there was a possibility. Okay, great.
Anything more about the letters that they should be anticipating soon, the grants, since we have them? They've been asking about when they would receive feedback, so I didn't know if you just wanted to build on that with us about how they're getting a letter from DOL first, and then they'll be getting our feedback.
Sure. And that is exactly the 1-2 that will happen here. There will be a compliance review letter that will go out to round 4 grantees from the TACT mailbox. Some of those are actually ready to hit send on, some are a few days behind that. And then as soon as those out, then the evaluation letter will come separately from Erica Liddell. So sorry for the delay on that. I know you've just been waiting with bated breath and twiddling your thumbs with nothing else to do waiting for that. I'm kidding, but waiting with bated breath for us on that, and we're just experiencing some staff shortages. So, you know, we're paddling as fast as we can.
Yes, we are paddling as fast as we can, and the compliance letters that we've been referring to that are coming from Department of Labor will come from the TACT email address, and then we are piloting something new this year. So you have been getting all of the correspondence from DOL, from tact@dol.gov. This year we're actually piloting with your round. We're going to be sending all the evaluation information from Chief Evaluation Office at dol.gov. So you'll see how that goes, but regardless, you'll still always want to be copying tact@dol.gov or at your FPO whenever you contact us or have questions. So.
Yep.
Coming here. This is a really great question. So just clarification on DOL is going to be approving the detailed evaluation plans before you implement your evaluation. And so really what that means, just to provide a little bit more detail, so you can spend grant funds on developing your detailed evaluation plan. You can actually also through approval and working with your FPO and all of that, you can actually spend, if you've budgeted in your evaluation budget for your third-party evaluator to attend any DOL evaluation-related conferences, you serve that as well, again, working with your FPO and all of that. But we are going to be approving whether you can implement your evaluation plan. So, for example, you know, you should be deploying a survey, a baseline survey with participants until you've gotten approval from Department of Labor on implementing your detailed evaluation plan. There was some confusion about if someone has already submitted the detailed evaluation plan or not. So when you submit a grant application, you submitted a summary evaluation plan. And talking about today is actually a much lengthier document and more detailed document that will expand upon the summary evaluation plan, address the feedback from the summary evaluation plan, as well as address all the components that we've discussed today. And that's due May 15th. I actually, since, you know, we talked earlier about how a lot of you are in different places, and we even heard from someone that you definitely have your third-party evaluator, you already have a proposal, you're kind of off to the races. We would love to get any plans early. You don't have to wait until May 15th. In fact, please send them as soon as possible. So you could even get you feedback sooner if you got them in before May 15th. So, you know, we would love to get your evaluation plans as soon as possible. But the deadline is May 15th. So by May 15th, we should either have an evaluation place in hand that emailed tact@dol.gov with the copy to your FPO, or you should in the least have contacted us and know that it'll be, coming in a couple days, coming in and whatever extension it needs. So, and we'll work with you on that.
Questions here, and we'll be right back.
Going through a couple more questions. We have a few more, and then we're gonna wrap up. But I do apologize. So you had word detailed because I don't want to mix things up. Very complex, very thoughtful, very intricate evaluation plans that you submitted, and we had so much information, and we're so excited about what you were doing your evaluation plan that we actually went ahead and already gave you approval to implement so we do need to get that detailed evaluation plan to get more information about what we're doing, but you gotten an approval. That clarifies. Lauren, did you want to add something about that?
Well, the approval will come with the letter with the summary of the evaluation plan feedback.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, because we haven't sent out the letter yet.
Yes.
So sorry, we read them and we were so excited. And any minute, any moment you will get the let you know that you're okay to move forward. But we need to get a detailed evaluation plan from you all.
About with the final evaluation report, and when we say about the end by the end of the grant period, whether it's a particular date. So I think your grantee would have what the end date of your grant is, and that would be the latest date of submission to the department for the final report.
And we just had another question come in related to saying that your third-party evaluators, when you procure them, that evaluation plan they develop might be very different than the summary plan you include in your application. That's completely fine, and actually that has happened. And some grants have alerted us beforehand, but it's fine. We're actually expecting to have a lot more detail, also just in the nature of the grants, even if just as the nature of, when we have a huge competitive process and it was big, coveted tax, and we got a lot of to get to do the national evaluation of round 4. And so certainly the plan that was submitted, we're going to be making changes to that as well. So that's just what I'm trying to say is that's a natural part of evaluation plan. You think you have information to develop a plan, but then you get in there and talk to the grant and get a lot more detail, and you can refine your plan or think, oh, this comparison cohort will work, and then you find out actually that data is not available and things like that. So we're certainly expecting to see some changes in your evaluation plan, and so don't feel beholden if you need to change your course, the summary evaluation plan to the detailed evaluation plan. Feel free to do that as you have had probably more and more conversations with the third-party evaluator to develop the detailed evaluation plan.
So I'm going to let Erica just look at a few questions that are coming in, but I wanted to just answer about including all the sub-questions on the implementation analysis that are in the SGA is what I believe the grantee, the attendee is asking, especially if they don't address topics not included in their grant activities. And so that might be, yes, those are very detailed questions. There might be a part of it that might not be applicable, but you just really want to mention that in your detailed evaluation plan, why that particular sub-question might not be, relevant to your particular grant.
Yeah, but I would say as a general rule of thumb, we are expecting, the NSGA did outline some pretty detailed research questions, and we are expecting you to address all of them, and for information in the detailed evaluation plan of how, the data sources you're going to be using for that, and more detail around how you actually are going to answer the research questions that were included in the SGA. But of course, feel free to, and you should, add additional research questions that are more specific or you find more useful to you, depending on what your intervention is. So just to clarify, we got an email about how the letters are going to come. They are going to be emails from the Department of Labor. They are not going to be hard copy letters in terms of the evaluation feedback. Carol, did you want to say anything about that for compliance letters?
Well, I think it will be emailed via the tact.gov mailbox.
Related to payment, so, and Cheryl, please feel free to jump in, but basically, in your budget you submitted for your tax, you were able to get up to 10% of the funds for the evaluation budget. So our office, just to provide you a little bit more clarification, we're reviewing the evaluation plans and the budgets relate to, does the budget that you're proposing relate to, does it make sense based on the rigor and feasibleness of the plans that you're proposing? And so the ETA is really handling kind of the funds like that. So we're saying that you're not approved to spend money on implementing the evaluation plan until you get approval on either your summary or detailed evaluation plan. Carol, I didn't know if you had any specific funding questions, if you wanted them to follow up with you, or...
Right, that would go directly to their FPO then. So I realize this gets confusing, right, because there's us, there's evaluation folks, and there's, various other folks as well. So if you're not sure about something, certainly you can, in the case of an evaluation, you could send the email to both the urban, tacteval@urban.org address and the tact at dol.gov address. And then particularly, please do that if it's a mixed issue, here's our evaluation question, but then we also have a question about expenditure of funds, related to this evaluation or something like that. But that really, frankly, should go to your FPO first, and you can evaluation box. The tact at dol.gov box if you want to as well.
And if you're, not sure, the place you should always go is tact@dol.gov.
Actually, I would say the first place you should go is your FPO.
Oh, right. So your FPO and tact@dol.gov, because we're really no wrong door. We'll always get it to the right place, but your FPO will be able to at least help you, point you in the right direction. And we certainly all communicate and share emails and things like that. So there's really a wrong place, but Cheryl's absolutely right. Your FPO is always the first place you start. I think we are at time and magically have answered the question that came in. So if you certainly have any other questions, feel free to follow up with us. So you can email us at tact@dol.gov and copy your FPO, or you can ask your FPO, you can point you in the right direction, or you can email us at tact@dol.org. It's very evaluation specific for so thank you very much for your attendance. And again, we are going to be posting a copy of this PowerPoint. The slides are going to be on the TAC Community of Practice as soon as possible. We'll certainly also be posting this once taceval.org gets up and running. And then the detailed evaluation plan technical assistance document is already posted on the TAC Community of Practice site. So hopefully you're able to follow along with that document. If not, you can ask us questions, or once you've had a chance to dive into more detail. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.